privilege to be learning today bracha stuff Mem Aleph, Amud Aleph in the Mishnah, about 10 lines from the bottom. Let's take it away. We're learning to Nishmas, Bracha Bas Rabbi Yehuda, and Avram ben Aaron Yitzchak. Says the Mishnah, Birachal Persa Ilan. Guy makes a bracha on an apple, banana. Birachal Persa Ilan Beire Priya Doma Yotza. It works. He said Beire Priya Doma Yotza means b'di'eved. Yotza always means Yotza b'di'eved. Now, lechatchila you should say Beire Priya Eitz, but if you said by mistake a Beire Priya Doma, you are Yotza. But Persa Oretz, if you said on Persa Oretz, Beire Priya Eitz lo Yotza. You had something that grows on the ground. You had a potato, and you say on it Beire Priya Eitz. You're not Yotza because it doesn't grow on a tree. Lo Yotza. Val kulam on everything. Anything you don't know what the bracha is, what should you say? Shakolni b'dvarei. It seems to be a little bit of machlokes if that means that someone puts in front of you stuff you don't know what it is, you don't know what bracha it is, just say shakol, or that if you b'di'eved you said shakol by mistake, you're yotza.
We learn about olive oil though. In the one case where you can drink it, you have to say H, you can't say shakol.
Shakol.
Right? That's the one exception.
We're gonna discuss again. Hey, it's olive oil. We didn't get out of olive oil yet. Don't worry.
It's hard to get rid of the oil.
Right.
Sticks.
So, right. So it says in gemorah. We're up to go man tana. The ikeilan aruhu. In other words, why are yates? If you say beire priya doma, you thank Hashem, you made the fruits of the ground, but it's the fruits of a tree. You said on an apple, beire priya doma. Why are yates? Man tana de ikeilan aruhu. The main part of the tree, it looks like it's growing on a tree, but really, the main growth is through the ground. The ikeilan aruhu, the main way it's growing is actually through the ground, not from the tree. So who is this? Amar Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Rav Yehuda. This is the opinion of Rav Yehuda in the Mishnah, the Snan. It says in the Mishnah, Yavesh hamayan v'niktzatza ilan. A guy's got a field, and the field, it doesn't rain in this place where he lives, right? Guy lives in an area, there's no rain. So what's he rely on? His field relies on the mayan. He's got like a spring in the field, a river or something, some natural water source coming through his field, but it dries up. That water source dries up. V'niktzatza ilan. There's a tree in his field. V'niktzas, the tree gets chopped down. He lost the tree. He loses the river. Maybe ve'enu kaira. So he's got to bring bikurim. What's bikurim? The first fruit that grow in your tree. The first fruit that grow, you got to take to the Beis Hamikdash. You give it to the Beis Hamikdash. So what does he do? He brings it ve'enu kaira. You can't read the psukim. You can't read the verses. Why? Because the verse says, what does it say? Take a look in Rashi. Maybe ve'enu kaira. It's about 10 lines from the bottom of Rashi. Since he's not able to say honestly, mina adoma shenosatali, from the ground you've given me. The kaven de yavesh hamayon v'niktzeilan. Since the river dried up and now his ground is no longer fertile, and the tree's been chopped down v'niktzeilan, bottle la'ara. That's no longer considered ground. In other words, you don't say thank you, not even though you only take bikurim from a tree, but the lashon of the pasuk is you thank Hashem for the adama, for the ground. And since the ground now is dead, there's no longer a water source, or the ground can no longer give you fruit because there was one tree there, and the tree's chopped down, so now this ground can no longer give you fruit. So you bring the bikurim because it's the first fruit, but you can't say this pasuk. You can't say the verse, Min adoma shenasatabi, thank you Hashem for the ground you've given me, because the ground's no good. It's a machlekes if we're talking about a case where you first took the fruit off the tree, and then it got chopped down, then the river dried up, or afterwards. It seems a bit of machlekes. So Rabbi Yehuda says eino kaira. Why? So the first opinion is eino kaira. Rabbi Yehuda says maybe v'kaira You're allowed to read, you're allowed to bring the Bikurim, you're allowed to say this pasuk. Why? Al Peres Haaretz. Sorry, Mevukera. Why Mevukera? Says Rashi, Sha'aretz Hu Ikar. You're right, you lost the tree. But the tree wasn't that important. The Aretz is the Ikar. The main thing is the Aretz, is the Adama, is the ground, the earth. So therefore, the main part of the tree is the Aretz, is the ground. So if you have an apple and you said Bei Pri Adama, you Yetza, because it looks like it's growing from a tree, but really it's growing from the Aretz, from the Adama, from the ground. So that's Rabbi Yehuda. Says the gemorah. Al Peres Haaretz. What did the Mishnah say? Al Peres Haaretz. What do you say on Peres Haaretz? If you said something that grows on the ground, ha'etz, you're not yetzer, right? Pshita. Isn't that pasha? That's obvious. We need this opinion that you can't say beire priya eitz on something that grows on the ground. In other words, you pick up an apple, you pick up a potato, a carrot, you're going to say beire priya eitz? It didn't grow on a tree. So of course you can't say beire priya eitz. What's the mission telling me? You can't say beire priya eitz, the fruit of the tree, for something that grew in the ground. It didn't grow on a tree. Potatoes don't grow on a tree. Why should you, what's the havamina? Why would you think you could be yetzer with a beire priya eitz on a potato? You need this Mishnah further than Rabbi Yehuda. The Omar Chita min Ilani. I only need this for the opinion that wheat is a type of tree. You knew that? There's an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that says wheat is a type of a tree. Titania. How do I know this? It says in the Brayso, Ilin she'acham men Adam Rishon. Adam in the Garden of Eden. What did he eat? He ate from a fruit, right? That was forbidden. What was it? So it's a machlekes. Ilin she'acham men Adam Rishon. Reb Meir gefen haya. Reb Meir says, you know what? It was grapes. That's what he ate from. Why would you say it's grapes? Maybe there's nothing that curses a man as much as grapes. There's nothing that ruins a man as much as grapes. Getting drunk, that ruins people. That brings misa, that kills a person. That's why it was fitting that the thing that he ate from that brought death to the world was grapes. Because grapes ain't good. Nothing good comes from it. Shenema. Well, see, it's not nothing good comes from it, but it's also it's a double-edged sword. Shenema v'yosh min hayayin, the yishkar. Okay, that's the pasuk. Reb Chaim says, you know what he ate from? Teina. The thing that he fixed himself with is the thing that ruined him. Shenema v'yitva teina. All of a sudden, Adam Rishon realized he was naked, and he sewed himself like the leaves of a teina, of a fig tree. He made himself clothes out of it. So it was fitting that the thing that made him fall, the thing that made him stumble, is the thing that he went ahead and fixed himself with. Why would he fix himself with something else? Use the same thing. Try and be misaken. I'm not sure what the svara is there, but it's mistavra that it was for the same thing. Rabbi Yehuda, no. This is what we needed. Rabbi Yehuda, chita. So you know what Adam Rishon ate that ruined him? Chita, wheat. Why? She'eina tinak yedei likris abba ve'imma ad sheyitum tam dagon. Says Rabbi Yehuda, a baby doesn't know how to say abba imma. The first words a baby says normally is abba imma. A baby can't say that ad sheyitum tam dagon until a baby eats wheat. His brain, there's something in the development of the brain doesn't happen until he eats wheat. And therefore, I guess it's a das, it gave him das. Maybe there was some type of, you see from here, the wheat is the thing that gives the person das. So, or it has that effect on a person. I'm not sure exactly what the raya is, but says it was wheat. Okay, so wheat is a tree. So it says he ate from a tree. Ate das, the tree of knowledge. And he says it was wheat. So you see from here, according to Yehuda, the wheat is a tree. So the Gemara says, the Gemara says, you might think that according to Yehuda, the wheat is a type of a tree. So if you said Bayer Priya eitz on wheat, you should be eitzer. You're good. You don't have to make another bracha. And the Mishnah comes to tell me, no, if you said Bayer Priya eitz on wheat, you're not eitzer. Kamash Milan, Heichid and Varach and Bar Priya Eitz. When, so according to Rabbi Yehuda, why can't you say Bar Priya Eitz on wheat? If wheat is a tree, why can't you say Bar Priya Eitz on wheat? Kamash Milan, Heichid and Varach and Bar Priya Eitz. When can you say Bar Priya Eitz? Heichid de Chishaklas leleperi isele gvaza. What's a tree? A tree is something you take the fruit and the gvaza, maybe the geza, they call it now the geza, the bark, remains. V'hodomapik, and it keeps giving more fruit. What's a tree? A tree is something that the bark stays, the essence, the main part of it stays, and you just keep taking fruit. Ava says the gemorah, if you take the fruit, leisa, the shaklas peri, leila peri, leisa legvaza, you killed the bark. If the bark can no longer give you fruit, so you can't make a bar priya eitz. Now you say bar priya dama. So that's the difference between a tree and something that's not a tree.
So wait, it is a tree, just don't say bar priya eitz.
It is a tree. It is a tree. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's a tree. Eitz adas says wheat is a tree, but since when you take the wheat, it's got to grow from the beginning. You don't have anything remaining there. The stem doesn't stay. You chop down the whole thing. It's got to grow from the beginning. Therefore, it's not a bar priya eitz you make a bracha on. That's what it depends on. It's a big machlaikas. What does this gvaza mean? Does it mean the bark, or does it mean the roots? Because a lot of the time, the roots will stay in the ground. The roots do remain. So if the roots do remain, according to an opinion, that's also considered a tree. In other words, what has to remain? The roots or the bark? That seems to be a bit of a machlokes shayim over here. In what fruit do you see the roots remain? I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's many things that the roots remain in the ground. Asparagus, I think, I don't know. Roots remain in the ground, and he keeps giving out every year new what's it called. Take a look at Taisus. Taisus actually spells out what other cases. Take a look at Taisus. The bottom Taisus on Daf Mem Aleph, Amud Aleph. Let's take a look at the Taisus above, actually, very brief Taisus. If this guy's field dries out, the river dries out, why can't you say? So Taisus says, why can't you say this pasuk? When you're thanking Hashem for your field, right? But your field dried out. That's not thanking Hashem. It looks like you're complaining. You're bitter. You're complaining. So that's why you can't say al adoma if your adoma's dried out. It ain't good. Next Taisus. The tutim, strawberries, or frizish, frisish, I don't know how you say this, ubuntuns, What bracha do you make on strawberries? You say Bayer Priya Eitz. L'chayra, I think the Mepharsh say that it's talking about what's it called? Blackberries and raspberries, and strawberries. That the tree of the strawberry, the bush, the stem, it lasts for between 5 to 7 years. It doesn't go every year. It lasts for a long time. It lasts for years, 3 to 5 years, 6 to 7 years, depending on the type. So what bracha do you make of strawberries, raspberries, blueberries? You say Bar Priya Eitz. An eitz isn't telling you whether it's got a big one bark, and when you're a kid you think a tree's got one trunk and a bunch of leaves and stems, whatever. That's not a tree. A tree is something that lasts for many years. So strawberries, it looks like it grows in some type of bush, but since that bush lasts for 7 years, that's called a tree. Halachically, as far as good.
Eitz on strawberries?
So you say eitz on strawberries. Tutim, you say eitz, says Taisus. It lasts for many years. You take the fruit from this year. The same thing gives you fruit the next year. So what bracha do you make on strawberries? Says Taisus, you make on eitz. Let's go back to the third page. Mem on the base with third line of Gemara. Al kulan im Omar shakol. Itma Rav Huna itma. So on everything, if you said shakol, the Mishnah said, anything you say shakol on, you yetza. It's good. Itma Rav Huna Omar chutz min ha'pas min ha'yayin. If you said shakol, this is what you mentioned before. If you said shakol on bread and on wine, you're not yetza. Shakol might see everything, except for bread and wine. Says Reb Chaim, afilu pas v'yayin nami. You know what? If you say shakol on bread and wine, you also yaitza. Ketanai, and it's a machlekes tonight. Now, this is Reb Chaim. Take a look at Taisus. It's just very important Taisus. The halacha is Taisus says, "V'chein halacha Reb Chaim halacha Reb Chaim." The Rav Reb Chaim. We pass like this Reb Chaim that if you said shakol on wine, you yaitza. So big nafkamina, guy is half drunk. He makes kiddush Shabbos morning on a big cup of wine, and he thinks it's whiskey. He says shakol b'dvarai on his wine. You yaitza. You'd have to make another bracha. You yaitza. Why? Because Rav Yechanan halacha Reb Yechanan. For Kolshkein, we saw this in the previous places. Rav Huna shay talmidish of Rav. Rav Huna was a talmid of Rav. So Kolshkein, the halacha is like Reb Yechanan, not like Rav, and certainly not like Rav's talmid Rav Huna. So Rav Huna and Reb Yechanan halacha Reb Yechanan. And we don't go with the Basra, we said late before, until the later stages, until the Bai Vorava. Only then do you go with the Basra, the later opinion. Says the Gemara, tonight, this machlekes of Huna and Reb Chaim, and this is a machlekes of the Tanaim, previous generation. Raw pass, he sees a piece of bread. You walk into the bakery, you see a nice loaf of bread, v'omar, come and now, pass zu. What a beautiful piece of bread. Baruch HaMakom Shabarai. Blessed is the Rahmana. Baruch HaMakom. Blessed is the Makom Shabara. Makom means Hashem. Shabara, the creator. Makom means literally the place. And Chazal say Hashem's called the place. God is called HaMakom, the place, because He's the place of the world. The world is all in His place, right? So HaMakom is the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm bringing this important. We're going to see in a second. Yatsa Yatsa. It works. It kicks in. So again, the guy sees a loaf of bread and he says, wow, what a beautiful loaf of bread. Blessed is Hashem that made this. So now you can eat it. You know? That's it. Rateina, he sees a date. You see a nice date, you go, wow, that's a nice date. Blessed is Hashem that made it. Yatsa. It works. It kicks in. Divi Reb Meir. This is the words of Rebbe Meir. Reb Yossi argues. If you make any type of change to something the Chazal ukaveya, you're not Yetza. Again, Chazal, the rabbis, they instituted a very specific bracha. You got to say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Hayom Ba'er Pia Eitz. You got to say those 7 words. If you don't, you blew it. Neymar. So that's the machlokes of Yossi and Reb Meir. Reb Meir says it's good enough to say, oh, that's a nice piece of bread. That's a nice banana. Thank you, Hashem. Beautiful. That's enough. Good to you got to say the whole Baruch Hashem. Name it. So let us say, again, we had a Malachik of Huna and Rechanan, right? If you can say Beir Pia Shakol, can you say Shakol on bread and on wine? So name it Rav Huna, Dama Reb Yossi. Rav Huna, he holds like Reb Yossi. Again, Rav Huna holds you got to say exactly the blessing that Chazal instituted. So Chazal instituted on bread. You can't say shakol because that's called you changed. You can't change the bracha. You've got to do exactly the right bracha. Reb Yechanan, Reb Meir. Reb Yechanan holds like Reb Meir. Reb Yechanan says, you know what? Of course shakol works. You can even say, wow, that's a nice loaf of bread. Thank you, Hashem. I don't have to say the whole bracha Hashem Elokeinu Melech Hayom. Rav Huna will say to you, I can hold my opinion, even according to Rav Meir. Even according to Rav Meir that says, that you can even say, wow, a nice loaf of bread, but still in this case, you can't say shakol. Why? Why is shakol not going to be good? I can like Rav Meir, Hassam. Rav Meir says it's good. Made the pass. Because there he says, wow, it's a nice loaf of bread. But here, the guy says shakol, you didn't mention any bread. You just said shakol b'dvarai, you didn't mention bread. If you don't say bread in your blessing, you're not Yaitza. Shakol's not good enough. You got to say, you're going to mention the fact that it's bread. I can hold my opinion even according to Reb Yaisi that says that you're not allowed to change the bracha. Hey, you Yaitza. Why? I can like Reb Yaisi also made to come a bracha to let Kinu Rabbanon. The guy in the brisa with Reb Yaisi, he says, "Oh, a nice loaf of bread." Of course, you're not Yaitza. Chazal never made such a bracha. That's not a lashon of a bracha. That's just a guy saying a nice loaf of bread. Thank you, Hashem. Here the guy says a bracha. The Chazal was saken. It's a legitimate bracha. It might be the wrong bracha, but it's a real bracha. I feel Reb Yaisi even Reb Yaisi will agree to me that you can say Shakoni B'dvarai on bread and on wine. Okay. Sorry. Binyamin. The story now. Binyamin Raya, there was a shepherd called Binyamin. Okay. Korach Rifta, he broke bread. V'omar, and he said the following words. Baruch Marei Dahai Pisa. Blessed is the master of this bread. And I guess he took a bite, right? Baruch again. What do you say? Baruch, blessed. Morei is the master. The high pita of this bread. Amar Rav Yotza. Rav says, Yotza. He's Yotza. It's good. So it's interesting because Rav says he's Yotza, right? Rufuna's Talmud was Machmer and said, no, you're not Yotza, right? Okay. V'amar Rav, kol bracha she'em baskaras shame ain't a bracha. Rav says, so the Gemara asks, Rav said Yetza, right? This guy said, wow, blessed is the master of this bread. Rav says Yetza. The Gemara asks, what do you mean, V'amar Rav? Didn't Rav tell us, kol bracha she'em baskaras shame ain't a bracha. Any blessing that you don't mention God's name, that's not a bracha. He didn't say the God's name, he says, blessed is the master of this bread. The Gemara answers, you're right. So what are we talking about here? Da'ama baruch rachmana mari dahai. He said, blessed is the rachmana, the compassionate one. Rachmana means compassionate one. So the compassionate one means Hashem. That's Hashem's name. Hashem's called Rachum. One of Hashem's name is the compassionate one. So some want to say that specifically in Bavel, they used Rachmana as the name of Hashem. So it doesn't mean any one of the kinuyim of Hashem. Only if you say the word Rachmana, that's what it means. So Rachmana is one of the names of Hashem. So the Gemara asks, okay, so he said there's one bracha. He said one bracha, right? He needs three brachas. So l'chayr, the Gemara is assuming here we're talking about the bracha you make after you eat. He had bread, and instead of benching, he just said, Baruch Chwanadai Pita, right? So the Gemara says, okay, he got one bracha, but you have to have three brachas. Brachas of Mosin is three. So my Yotza, the Gamar Rav. So what does it mean? He was Yotza. Nami Yotzi de bracha Shaina. It means he was Yotza the first bracha. He needs three brachas. He was Yotza one bracha by saying Baruch Chwanadai Pita. That's the first bracha. This is a very short benching. A guy can say, first set of the whole first thing, try this at home. Baruch Chwanadai Pita. Yeah, it's the first bracha. So what's he coming to tell me? What's the chiddush over here? My kamash malan, what's the chiddush? Avagav da'am l'lashon chol, even though he said it in Aramaic, he said it in English, he doesn't have to say it in Hebrew. He's Yetza. So just before we go further, I'll just point out there's a machlekes. What should a guy do?
What did he say in Chol? I didn't get it.
He said he doesn't say it in Hebrew. He says it in Aramaic. He said Baruch Chachmana Pita. You don't have to say it in Hebrew. Chazal misak in the brachas in Lashon HaKodesh, in the holy language of Hebrew. Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. And he said Baruch Chachmana Pita. It's Aramaic. So the chiddush is he's saying that even if you said it in a foreign language, you can say a bracha in French, in Spanish, in Italian, in Chinese, Yetza. You don't have to say brachas in Hebrew. That's what the chiddush is. It seems to be there's a big machlekes achronim. If a guy is not sure if he made a bracha, so some say, you know what you should say? Say this, Baruch Rachmana Dahai, whatever it is, and Yetza, Baruch Rachmana Mar Alma, say a bracha in Aramaic, so if you have a suffix, you can't say another bracha because you're not allowed to make another bracha, right? What should you do? Say it in Aramaic. Rechachmana. Others say, no, you can't. It's also, if it's a bracha, it's also bracha levatala. Just like you can't make any other bracha levatala, it doesn't help you to say this. Some want to say, no, it's a bracha chmana is a bracha, so you can eat. But it's not a bracha levatala. You didn't say Shem Malchus in Hebrew like Chazal Masakin, so it's not a bracha levatala. It's interesting machlokes. Should you say bracha chmana or not? Ask your local Orthodox rabbi. Says the Gemara. So we just established that the whole chiddush of Rav was that you can make the bracha in whatever language you want. The Gemara asked, Tanina, we know this already. We know this from a brisa. What does the brisa say? The brisa says these following things you're allowed to say in any language. Parsha Saita. So this woman who's accused of being unfaithful, she has to read this parsha. She says it in a language she understands. There's no point in saying in a language she doesn't understand. Vidui Maisa, when a person at the end, twice a year, person says Vidui Maisa, that he B'ayta Kodesh Men Abayis, that he's got no longer Trumah at home, he got rid of everything. The Kriyashma, person is Kriyashma twice a day. You can say it in any language. With Tefillah, when you pray Shema Esra, you can say it in any language. Or Birchas Hamazon. Birchas Hamazon, you can say in any language. To me, it looks like all these things are Chiyuvim Doraisa. These are all things you have to say which is biblical. And you can say it in any language. You're supposed to say it in a language you understand. No point in saying stuff you don't understand, right? So Itzrich, you need it. So what do you need Rav's din for? So one of these things, if you notice, was Birchas Hamazon. So the Brisa says you can say Birchas Hamazon in any language. So what's Rav coming to tell me you can say Birchas Hamazon in a foreign language, in Aramaic? Of course you can. It's in the list of the 6 things that you can say in any language. The Sakada Chamina Hani Mili Dam Belosh Chol Ki Heichi Ditkin Rabbanon Belosh Kodesh. I might think saying you have to say it in a foreign language, but it's got to be exactly the same words as in Hebrew. If you don't do an exact Google translation, or Google is the wrong translation, no, if you don't do an exact article translation, then you're not Yetzer. If you don't do it in exactly the same language, then you're not Yetzer. Kamash Malan says Rav Yetzer. Not only is it good enough to bench in English, in French, in German, whatever it is, but you don't have to say the same words. It's in the Birchas Hamazon. You can say any words. You're not tied to the exact words of the Birchas Hamazon. You can say your own nusach. All right. Do we have time to keep going? Yeah. Well, let's finish till the Mishnah. Amarav says with the third white line. Amarav. Call bracha Hashem b'askas Hashem eine bracha. Famously said, any bracha that you don't say the Shem Hashem, it's not a bracha. That's why we saw before, he says, Baruch Rachmana. Rachmana is the name of Hashem. In Aramaic, the compassionate one. V'yechin Amar, V'yechin argues, says, Kol Baruch Hashem, but Malchus ain't a bracha. Every bracha, you have to say Malchus, that God is the king of the world, meaning he is the ruler, he's in control of everything. It's not just enough to say that, thank you Hashem for giving me this apple. You've got to say he's the king. He's in control of the whole world. If you don't say that, it's not a bracha. Abaye says, you know what? I think the Rav is more logical, is more likely to Tanya. Why? It says in the Brisa. This guy is bringing his thing, his vidui maishas. He says, Levati mitzisecha v'lo shechachti. That's the pasuk he says. He says, Levati mitzisecha, I didn't go over your mitzvahs, v'lo shechachti, I didn't forget anything. Like, what does it mean? Levati milevarachecha. I wasn't over to bless you. The Bible says, I didn't forget to say your name over it. So the implication of this Bible is you have to say the Shem Hashem, but you don't have to say the fact that he's the king of the world. Rav Yochanan, Tani, v'lo shechachti, milahas geshimcha of malchusecha. Rech says, change the price at me. He said, I didn't forget to say, milahas geshimcha of malchuscha. He threw in the malchus. So according to Rav Yochanan, l'chayra you need shame and malchus. So what are you going to do in this brisa according to Rav Yochanan? This guy said Baruch Rachmana. So they say, change your price to mean he said Baruch Rachmana or Malkachach or whatever, or Malkach, the high Alma. That's what the guy said. All right, Shkoyach, have a wonderful day.
So where is the popular misconception that Adam Rishon ate an apple? Because that's not even one